I braced myself for the discovery of an affair, a simple betrayal. What I found instead was a meticulously crafted plan to erase me from existence and vanish with our children. Our life from the outside was the picture of suburban success. We had the 4-bedroom house with the manicured lawn, the 2 luxury cars in the garage, and the annual 2-week vacations to places with white sand and turquoise water. My husband, Mark, was a charismatic, high-flying consultant who had built his own firm from the ground up. I was the proud stay-at-home mom to our 2 beautiful kids, a role I had chosen and cherished after leaving my own promising career in marketing to support his dream. We were the couple other people pointed to at dinner parties, the ones who had it all figured out. For 10 years of marriage, I believed it too. The cracks started so subtly I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. It began with the money. Mark had always handled the finances. "You have enough on your plate with the house and the kids, honey," he'd say with a charming smile, patting my hand. "Let me worry about the numbers." It sounded noble, like he was shouldering a burden for me. So I let him. We had a joint account for household expenses, which he funded with a generous monthly transfer. My name was on the mortgage, on the car titles, on everything that mattered. Or so I thought. But over the last year, the generous transfer started to feel less so. Prices for everything were going up, the kids' activities were getting more expensive, and I found myself having to justify every little overage. "Another $100 at the grocery store, Sarah," he'd ask, looking over the statement with a furrowed brow. "We need to tighten our belts a little." This coming from a man who had just bought himself a $3,000 watch because he'd had a good quarter. When I pointed that out, he'd wave a dismissive hand. That was a business expense, an investment in my image. It's different. Everything was different when it came to him. His clothes, his golf club membership, his boys' trips to Vegas, those were all necessary investments. My request for a new dishwasher because ours was on its last legs, that was an extravagance we needed to carefully consider. A cold, quiet resentment started to build in my chest, a feeling I quickly pushed down, ashamed of myself for being ungrateful. The emotional distance grew in lockstep with the financial friction. The late nights at the office became more frequent. The business trips piled up, often booked at the last minute. When he was home, he was glued to his phone, a tight, unreadable expression on his face. He'd angle the screen away if I walked into the room. If I asked who he was texting, the answer was always the same clipped response. Just work. The man I married, the one who would tell me every detail of his day, was gone. In his place was a polite, secretive stranger who lived in my house. My mind, of course, went to the most obvious place. He was having an affair. I braced myself for the inevitable, for the day I'd find a lipstick stain or a suspicious credit card receipt for a hotel I'd never been to. But I never did. The person who kept me sane through all of this was Chloe. Chloe wasn't just my friend. She was the sister I never had. We'd known each other since we were 5 years old, sharing everything from scraped knees and teenage heartbreaks to wedding vows and the birth of our children. She knew every secret I had, every fear, every dream, and, ironically, she was also our accountant. When Mark's business started taking off, he was the one who suggested we hire her firm. "She's the best, and I know she'll give us the family rate," he'd said with a laugh. "Plus, it keeps everything transparent." The memory of him saying that now makes my blood run cold. He saw Chloe, my Chloe, as just a smart business decision, a convenient tool. He had completely, utterly forgotten the depth of the bond that tied us together. He had forgotten that a loyalty forged over 25 years of shared history was stronger than any contract he could ever sign. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Mark was supposedly on a last-minute trip to Chicago to close a deal. I was tidying up his home office, a space that was usually off-limits. He was obsessively neat, and I normally respected his privacy, but a glass of water had been knocked over near his desk, and I didn't want the mahogany to stain. As I blotted the water from his leather desk pad, I knocked over a stack of mail he'd tucked underneath. Most of it was junk, but one envelope slipped out from the middle. It was thick, heavy-duty paper, and it wasn't addressed to our home. It was addressed to a P.O. box in the next town over. The return address was for a private investment bank I'd never heard of. My heart started hammering against my ribs. My hands were shaking, but I carefully slit the envelope open. Inside was a quarterly statement for an account under one name and one name only, Mark Davis. I scanned the page, my eyes struggling to focus on the numbers. I didn't understand all the financial jargon, the tickers, and the trades, but I understood the number at the very bottom of the page, the one listed under total account value. It was 7 figures, and it had a comma in it. I sank into his expensive leather chair, the paper trembling in my hand. This wasn't just a secret savings account. This was a fortune. A fortune he had been building while telling me we needed to cut back on groceries. A fortune he had hidden from me, from our family, from our life together. The affair I had been dreading would have been a simple betrayal. This felt like something else entirely. It was a meticulously constructed deception, a parallel life built on a foundation of lies. I sat there for what felt like an hour, the silence of the house pressing in on me. The shock slowly receded, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. He hadn't just forgotten about the money. He had forgotten who he was dealing with. He had forgotten that the person who held the keys to his entire financial kingdom, the one person who could unravel every single thread of his elaborate lie, was the same person who used to braid my hair and hold my hand on the first day of school. I took a deep, steadying breath, pulled out my phone, and scrolled to a number I knew by heart. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and cheerful. "Hey, Sarah, what's up?" I tried to keep my own voice from cracking, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on my words. "Chloe," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I need your help, and Mark can't know." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line, followed by a silence so profound I thought the call had dropped. "Chloe, are you there?" I whispered, my voice ragged. Then her voice came back, but all the warmth was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard tone I'd only ever heard her use once before, when she was negotiating with the IRS on behalf of a major client. It was the voice of a warrior. "Sarah," she said, her words clipped and precise. "Where are you right now? Are you safe? Is he home?" I told her he was in Chicago, due back tomorrow afternoon. "Good," she exhaled. "Okay, listen to me. Do not touch anything else. Put the statement back exactly where you found it. Make the office look exactly as it was. Do not, under any circumstances, let him know that you know anything. Am I clear?" Her command cut through my panic, giving me a lifeline to cling to. I followed her instructions numbly, my hands still shaking as I slid the statement back into the envelope and tucked it under the mail stack. "Okay," I breathed into the phone. "It's done. I'm going to look into this P.O. box and the investment bank," she continued, the sound of furious typing already starting in the background. "This account, it's completely off the books. It's not connected to the business I manage or your joint assets. This is a deliberate, premeditated deception, Sarah. This isn't just hiding a bonus. This is building a second life." Her words confirmed the ugly truth coiling in my gut. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a strategy. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling like a child again. "When he comes home tomorrow, you are going to be the perfect loving wife," Chloe instructed, her voice softening slightly but losing none of its intensity. "You are going to ask about his trip. You are going to smile and kiss him. You cannot give him any reason to suspect that the ground has shifted beneath his feet. We need him to stay comfortable, to stay careless. The more secure he feels in his deception, the more mistakes he'll make. Can you do that for me?" I thought of his face, of his easy smile that I now knew was a mask. I thought of the last 10 years, of the sacrifices I'd made, believing we were building a future together when he was secretly building an escape hatch. A cold, hard anger began to solidify around my broken heart. "Yes," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I can do that." The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of motherhood, making lunches, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, all while a silent scream echoed in my mind. When Mark's car pulled into the driveway the next afternoon, my heart threatened to beat its way out of my chest. He walked in, dropping his briefcase by the door, and enveloped me in a hug. He smelled of expensive cologne and the sterile air of an airplane. "God, I missed you," he murmured into my hair, and I had to physically restrain myself from recoiling. He'd brought presents, a new doll for our daughter, a Lego set for our son, and a delicate diamond necklace for me. "A little something to say thanks for holding down the fort," he said, clasping it around my neck. The cold diamonds felt like a chain against my skin. At dinner, he regaled us with stories of the big deal in Chicago, all smiles and charisma. I played my part perfectly, asking the right questions, laughing at the right times, feeling like an actress in the twisted drama of my own life. Later that night, after he had fallen into a deep, untroubled sleep, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. "He's asleep?" I texted back a simple yes. "Go to his briefcase." The reply came instantly. "He never unpacks it right away. He's arrogant. Look for anything that isn't a standard work document, a different laptop, a burner phone, a flash drive, or old school, a notebook." I slipped out of bed, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. In the dim moonlight filtering through the window, I knelt beside his briefcase. My fingers fumbled with the cold brass latches, my breath catching in my throat with every tiny click. Inside, it was the usual mess of files, a laptop and chargers. But in a zipped side pocket, my fingers brushed against something hard and smooth. It was a small black moleskin notebook, held shut with an elastic band. It looked completely innocuous. I almost put it back, but Chloe's voice was in my head. "Anything." I crept into the master bathroom, closed the door without a sound, and sat on the floor, using the light from my phone to see. The first few pages were filled with notes that looked like business planning, but the language was strange. Phrases like asset liquidation timeline and phase 1 completion. It was chillingly methodical. I flipped further, my blood running cold as I saw lists of our assets, the house, the cars, our joint savings with percentages and dates next to them. This was a detailed blueprint for dismantling our life. Then I turned to the last section. The heading at the top of the page was Contingencies. Underneath was a short list of names. My eyes scanned down and stopped, frozen. There was my name, Sarah, and next to it, a date, about 8 months from now. Beside the date were 2 words that stole the air from my lungs. Initiate severance. It was clinical, brutal, but it was the line directly underneath mine that made my vision tunnel and my stomach drop to the floor. It was the names of our children, Lily and Tom. And next to their names, it didn't list a date. It listed a location, a small, obscure town in Costa Rica I'd never heard of. And beside that, a terrifyingly cryptic note. Establish new identities. Consult with Mr. X. The tile of the bathroom floor felt like a sheet of ice beneath me. Establish new identities. The words swam before my eyes, grotesque and unbelievable. This wasn't just about money anymore. This wasn't a man planning to leave his wife for a younger woman. This was a man planning to vanish. And he was planning on taking my children with him, erasing their entire lives, severing them from me as cleanly as he planned to sever our assets. The severance he had scheduled for me suddenly took on a much more sinister meaning. Was he just going to divorce me, or was he planning to leave me with nothing, a ghost in a life that no longer existed? The casual cruelty of the notebook, the cold, logistical planning of it all, was more terrifying than any screaming fight or tearful confession could ever be. He wasn't just betraying me, he was methodically plotting my complete and utter erasure. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone. I took a picture of every single page of that notebook, the flash disabled, my breath held tight in my chest. I sent them all to Chloe with a one-word message. Look. Then I slipped the notebook back into the briefcase, zipped the pocket, and crept back into bed. I lay there, rigid, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady, even breathing of the monster sleeping beside me. He rolled over, his arm instinctively reaching for me, draping heavily across my waist. I had to use every ounce of self-control not to scream, not to claw my way out of his grasp. I feigned sleep, my body a statue of ice, until I felt his arm relax and his breathing deepen again. The moment my phone buzzed, I was out of bed and back in the bathroom, locking the door behind me. It was Chloe. Her message was a string of frantic texts. "Oh my God, Sarah, this is beyond anything I imagined. He's not just hiding money. He's liquidating. He's moving assets into untraceable shell corporations. The names in that notebook, Mr. X. This is professional. This is dangerous." My blood ran cold. "What do I do?" I typed back, my thumbs clumsy and slow. "We play his game, but we play it smarter," she replied. "He thinks he's the only one with a plan. He thinks you're just the clueless little wife. He has no idea that we have access to the master blueprint of his entire financial world. The business he thinks is his, the one I manage, he funnels everything through it. He uses it to hide his movements, to justify his expenses. He thinks I'm just his loyal number cruncher. He's forgotten that every transaction, every wire transfer, every fabricated invoice he uses to siphon money out has my fingerprints on it. I see everything, Sarah. And now so will you." Over the next few weeks, I lived a double life that made Mark's deception look like child's play. By day, I was the devoted, slightly stressed suburban mom, planning play dates and complaining about the cost of organic milk. I made sure to seem a little distracted, a little overwhelmed, reinforcing his narrative of me as someone too busy with domestic life to notice the tectonic plates shifting beneath our marriage. But by night, I was a student, and Chloe was my teacher. She created a secure, encrypted portal for us to communicate through. She started sending me documents, spreadsheets, and flowcharts, teaching me how to read the language of his lies. I learned about offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, shell corporations registered in Delaware, and wire transfers disguised as payments to fictitious vendors. The scale of it was breathtaking. He had been systematically bleeding his own company dry for years, moving millions of dollars into a shadowy network of accounts that were designed to disappear. Chloe showed me the pattern. He would inflate business expenses for his trips, billing the company for 5-star hotels and Michelin star meals, then pocket the difference. He created fake consulting contracts with overseas companies that didn't exist, paying them huge sums that were then funneled back to his secret P.O. box account. He was building a war chest, a treasure trove for his new life in Costa Rica with my children. The anger that had been a cold stone in my stomach began to burn hot. He wasn't just stealing from our future. He was stealing from the employees who trusted him, from the clients who paid him. He was a fraud in every sense of the word. The hardest part was facing him every day. I had to smile when he talked about a tough quarter that meant we had to postpone renovating the kitchen. I had to nod in sympathy when he complained about the stress of keeping the business afloat. Every word out of his mouth was a lie, and every lie felt like a physical blow. But Chloe's voice was a constant presence in my ear, through texts and secret late-night calls. "Stay strong, Sarah. Every lie he tells is another piece of rope he's handing us. He's getting comfortable, arrogant. He thinks he's invisible." And she was right. He started leaving his personal laptop, the one not used for work, unlocked in his office. He became careless with stray papers. He was so convinced of his own brilliance, so sure of my ignorance, that he was practically leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. One night, Chloe sent me a message that made my heart stop. I found it. The big one. He's about to liquidate his main holding company. It's the final step before he can move the bulk of the money offshore, completely out of reach. According to his timeline in the notebook, Phase 1 completion. It's scheduled for this Friday. He's transferring $5 million. Once that transfer is initiated, Sarah, it's gone. For good. I felt a wave of nausea. This was it. The point of no return. What do we do? I typed, my hands slick with sweat. We let him, Chloe replied. We let him make the transfer. But he's forgotten one tiny little detail. He set me up as a co-signer on that holding account years ago for emergency purposes. He needed 2 signatures to open it, and I was the most convenient option. He's so arrogant he probably doesn't even remember. A transfer of that size requires dual authorization. His request will come to my desk on Friday morning. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. So you can just stop it? I asked. Chloe's reply was instant, and I could practically hear the wicked grin in her voice. Oh, I can do better than that, my friend. I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to reroute it. The plan was terrifying in its simplicity. On Friday morning, Mark would log into his banking portal from his office, feeling like a king about to move the final piece on his chessboard. He would initiate the $5 million wire transfer, a transaction that represented years of meticulous deception. The system would flag it as a high-value transfer, automatically sending a dual authorization request to the other signatory on the account, Chloe. He would be expecting her to rubber stamp it, assuming it was just another routine business transaction she wouldn't look at twice. He had no idea this was the very move we had been waiting for. Chloe wouldn't reject the transfer. That would raise an immediate alarm. Instead, she had already set up a new trust account in a bank he had no affiliation with. The account was in my name, and my name alone. All she had to do was change a few digits in the destination account number, enter her authorization code, and click Approve. His entire escape fund, the cornerstone of his new life, would be silently diverted, vanishing from his grasp and reappearing in mine. The days leading up to Friday were agonizing. I was a bundle of raw nerves, jumping at every sound. Mark was in an unusually good mood, humming to himself in the shower, being extra affectionate with me and the kids. He was the picture of a man on the cusp of a great victory, and the irony was so thick it was suffocating. He thought he was closing a chapter, when in reality he was walking directly into a trap that had been laid with his own tools. On Thursday night, he announced he was taking the kids out for a special treat after school the next day. Just the 3 of us, he said with a wink. You deserve a break, honey. Why don't you have a spa afternoon or something? My treat. He handed me a crisp $500 bill. It felt like blood money. A cold dread washed over me. He was creating an alibi, a picture of the generous husband giving his wife a break while he performed his final act. He was also getting the kids out of the house. He didn't want any distractions on the most important day of his secret life. Friday arrived, gray and tense. I kissed the kids goodbye at the school gate, my heart aching with a ferocity that almost buckled my knees. I love you both more than anything in the world, I whispered, holding them a little too tight. My daughter, Lily, looked up at me, her brow furrowed. Are you sad, Mommy? She asked. I forced a smile. No, sweetie. Mommy's just so full of love for you it's spilling out of my eyes. I watched them run into the school, then watched as Mark's car pulled away, taking my entire world with him. The spa day was the perfect cover. I checked into a luxurious day spa across town, paid in cash with his tainted money, and found a quiet, secluded lounge chair by the pool. The air smelled of chlorine and eucalyptus. It was supposed to be relaxing, but my body was coiled tight as a spring. At 10 a.m., my phone vibrated, a message from Chloe. He's logged in. He's starting the process. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keypad, unable to type. The minutes stretched into an eternity. I watched other women in fluffy white robes laugh and chat, ordering champagne, living in a world that suddenly felt alien to me. I was a soldier in a foxhole waiting for a signal. At 10:17 a.m., the phone vibrated again. Request received. It's for the full 5 million. Destination, a numbered account in Zurich. My breath hitched. Zurich. Of course. I'm making the change now, the next text read. My heart was pounding in my ears, a frantic drumbeat against the serene spa music. I pictured Chloe in her office, her face calm and professional, her fingers flying across the keyboard, performing a digital heist of epic proportions. At 10:19 a.m., a single, beautiful message appeared on my screen. It is done. The money is yours. Confirmation will be in your inbox in 5 minutes. He will get a standard transfer successful notification. He won't know a thing is wrong until he tries to access the account in Zurich and finds it empty. And by then, we will be long gone. A wave of relief so powerful it left me dizzy, washed over me. I wanted to cry, to laugh, to scream. We did it. We had actually done it. I took a deep, shuddering breath and typed back, "Thank you, Chloe. I owe you everything." Her reply was instant. "We did this together. Now go to the bank, get the cashier's checks, get the kids. It's time to disappear." Phase 2 of our plan was just as critical. I couldn't just leave. He knew where my parents lived, where my sister lived. He had the resources to find me. Chloe had helped me map out a new life, a new identity, in a place he would never think to look. The 5 million was our key. I left the spa, my mind racing. I went to the new bank, my hands trembling as I signed the paperwork and had the funds broken down into a series of cashier's checks. Untraceable, liquid. It was all real. By 2:30 p.m., I was parked in the pickup line at the school, my car already packed with bags I had hidden in a storage unit weeks ago. Everything we needed, everything that mattered. When Lily and Tom came running out, their faces bright and full of life, I felt a surge of protective love, so fierce it stole my breath. "Surprise," I said, my voice bright and cheerful. "We're not going home. We're going on a special adventure, just the 3 of us." They cheered, oblivious, as I buckled them into their seats. As I pulled away from the school, leaving our old life behind in the rearview mirror, my phone rang. It was Mark. My blood turned to ice. It was too soon. He shouldn't know yet. I let it ring, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. He called again and again. Then a text message came through. My hands were shaking as I handed the phone to Lily in the back seat. "Sweetie, can you read Mommy what Daddy's text says?" Her small voice piped up a moment later, reading the words that made no sense to her but that sent a bolt of pure, unadulterated terror through my entire body. It says, "I know what you did. I'm at the house, and I have your friend Chloe." For a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, the world went silent. The sound of my children's chatter in the back seat faded into a dull roar, and the only thing I could hear was the frantic thumping of my own blood in my ears. "I have your friend Chloe." The words were a declaration of war. He wasn't just a thief and a liar anymore. He was cornered, and a cornered animal is the most dangerous kind. My first instinct was to slam on the brakes, turn the car around, and race back to the house. To trade myself, the money, anything for Chloe's safety. But then I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw Lily and Tom, their innocent faces illuminated by the afternoon sun, happily playing a game on the tablet. They were my priority. They were the reason for all of this. Turning back was exactly what he wanted me to do. It was another trap. My mind raced, scrambling for the thread of the plan Chloe and I had so carefully woven. We had prepared for this. We had a contingency for everything. "Never engage directly," she had warned me, her voice firm during one of our late-night strategy sessions. "He'll try to manipulate you, to use your love for others against you. Don't let him. Stick to the plan." I pulled the car over into a quiet side street, my hands shaking so badly I could barely put it in park. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Tom asked, his voice small. I forced a smile, turning to face them. "Nothing, sweetie." Mommy just needs to make a very important phone call. It's a surprise for our adventure. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and dialed a number I had memorized but prayed I would never have to use. The man who answered on the first ring didn't give his name. His voice was calm, professional, and devoid of any emotion. "Yes?" he said. He was a private investigator, a former federal agent Chloe had insisted we retain. He was our ace in the hole, a man who specialized in high-stakes domestic situations and asset recovery. We'd paid his hefty retainer from the business funds weeks ago, disguised as a security consultation. "It's me," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Code Nightingale. He has her. He's at the house." There was no surprise in the man's voice. "We've had eyes on the property since 8 a.m. We saw him arrive 20 minutes ago. We also saw your friend's car pull up 5 minutes after he did. She wasn't forced inside, ma'am. She walked in on her own." Relief and confusion warred inside me. Chloe had walked in? Why? Then it hit me. This was her move, her final, brilliant checkmate. Mark's text wasn't a statement of fact. It was a bluff. He hadn't captured her. He had called her there, probably in a panic after discovering the empty Zurich account, trying to figure out what went wrong. He still saw her as his loyal accountant, the one person who could fix this. He was trying to use her as bait to lure me back. He had no idea she was the architect of his downfall. The investigator's voice cut through my thoughts. "My instructions from Ms. Albright were clear. If you initiated this call, I was to inform you that she is fine, that everything is proceeding as planned, and that under no circumstances are you to deviate from your primary objective. Get the children to safety. Do you understand?" "Yes," I breathed, a wave of awe at Chloe's foresight washing over me. She had anticipated this, too. "Yes, I understand." I hung up the phone and looked at my children again. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, diamond-hard resolve. He was not going to win. He was not going to use my love for my friend to destroy my children's future. I put the car in drive and merged back onto the highway, heading north, away from the life that was already burning down behind me. I turned my phone off and tossed it into the back seat. We were ghosts now. 2 hours later, as the sun began to set, I followed Chloe's detailed instructions, exchanging my car for a prepaid rental at a small, out-of-the-way lot. My real phone was gone, replaced by a burner with only one number in it, the investigators. As we settled into a nondescript hotel for the night, I turned it on. There was one message waiting. It was a link to a news article from my hometown's local station. The headline read, "Prominent local consultant arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme." I clicked the link, my heart hammering. The article detailed how Mark Davis had been taken into custody at his home, following a tip-off from his firm's own accounting department. His accountant, Chloe Albright, had arrived at his house for a meeting, but had secretly been wearing a wire, recording his frantic, incriminating confession as he tried to figure out where his stolen millions had gone. He'd admitted everything, the shell corporations, the offshore accounts, the plan to flee the country. He had even, in his rage and confusion, threatened her. The police, who had been parked down the street at the investigator's direction, moved in the moment the threat was made. It was all there. His entire empire of lies, dismantled in a single afternoon. I sank onto the hotel bed, tears of relief and grief finally streaming down my face. I cried for the man I thought I had married, for the 10 years I had given to a lie. But I also cried with a profound, earth-shattering gratitude for the friend who had walked into the lion's den for me, armed with nothing but her wits and a wire. She hadn't just saved my money, she had saved me. She had ensured he could never come after us, binding him up in a legal nightmare of his own creation. The severance he had planned for me was now his own. The next morning, we were on a plane. We didn't go to some tropical paradise. We went somewhere quiet, somewhere normal. A small town in Oregon where no one knew our name, a place Chloe had helped me research for months. With the money, I bought a small, comfortable house, outright in cash. I enrolled the kids in the local school under our new, legally changed names. The $5 million after taxes and legal fees wasn't a treasure chest for a lavish life. It was a foundation. It was security. It was the freedom to give my children the stable, loving, and honest life that their father had tried to steal from them. 6 months later, a package arrived. Inside was a framed photo of Chloe and me, taken on my wedding day. We were laughing, young and full of hope. Tucked into the back was a simple note in her familiar handwriting. He took a plea deal, 15 years. You are free. Live beautifully. I'll see you when the snow melts. And as I put the picture on my new mantle, in my new home, with my children laughing in the next room, I knew that for the first time in a very long time, I finally was free.